Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to give you 5 pointers on how to talk in small groups. So let's dive right in. Number 1 is what I call lean in, okay? And this can be literally and also figuratively. If you're sitting around a table with a group of people, you start feeling like there's something that you want to say or you should say. You don't want to be leaving it a really long time. A classic example of this was for me in the Monday morning meeting when I used to work in the embassy in Beijing, and I would absolutely hate it because I was at the end of the row and it would go round in order of seniority and the tension would build and build and build. And by the time it got to me, I was basically already having a full-on panic attack. My heart rate was up to like 160, 170, pounding away in my throat. I was sweating all over. I could barely hold it together. And then I used to kind of build up a phobic reaction to almost going into work on Monday. And you can imagine this thing that's going to happen every Monday morning. And you start almost building a phobia around that. So one thing that I found that really helped me, and also this also applied when I was at university sitting in a lecture theatre, is that I would lean into the pain. So I know that I have to speak. So instead of putting it off and making myself small and trying to hide at the back of the room or all those things that we do when we don't want to speak, because all that does is it delays the pain and it also draws attention to you. So what I learned to do was to lean in. I would physically bring myself forward into the group and then I would offer something up quite early. So that's my first tip for you, is to lean in figuratively and literally. You know, don't try and pull back from the group. Lean into the group, become engaged, and actually lean into that punch that you're so scared of taking. This leads on very nicely onto my second point, and they're somewhat related, and that is to just break the ice, right? So it doesn't matter what you say, just get your mouth open and just throw something out there, you know, like it doesn't really matter. Just contribute something early on, because the longer you leave it, the bigger a deal it is going to seem. And if you've been sitting around with a bunch of people, they're all talking about wives, families, girlfriends, jobs, cars, whatever, and you're sitting there watching this kind of conversational ping pong match go on, like, oh God, what do I say? When shall I come in? And it goes on and on and on. It just starts to build up this tension in you. So just break the ice early, get something out there, and just try and get into the flow with it. Number 3, for dealing with talking in small groups, what I really recommend is to project your awareness outwards. And this can also be thought of as kind of getting out of your own head and really focusing more on the people that you're talking to and that are talking. Because what happens when you have social anxiety, as you well know, is that we just spend so much time locked up behind this little barrier in our own little head going, oh my God, you know, that person's looking at me. Maybe they're thinking this about me. Maybe my last comment was strange. Maybe my eye contact's weird. And you're just completely engaged in your own paranoid little monologue that you're not actually paying attention. Someone's talking to you and you're actually thinking, where should I look? Shall I focus between their eyebrows? Oh my God, maybe I've got something between my teeth. I bet I look weird. Fucking hell, I'm sweating so much now. Oh my God. So you're not engaged at all. So one way that I've found that worked for myself and other people I've spoken to about this is you project yourself outwards. You try and take the self-referential focus off yourself and actually really look at that person, really genuinely listen to what they're saying. Try and be interested in what they're saying and actually feel it. Try and have some empathy and just focus more outside of the constant clutter that's going on inside your own mind, and try and project yourself onto them and think, this is a real person who is giving me their time and their emotion and energy. Let me focus on them. Let me give my full attention to them. And I know that might sound somewhat patronizing because I'm making it sound easy, and we know that this is very difficult to do, but I have found it effective to just be genuinely give your attention and just try and forget yourself a little bit by putting all of your awareness onto the other person as they speak. So that point also leads on to point number 4, which is also somewhat related, which is to be genuine. Be genuine in your listening, be genuine in your engagement with them, but also just be genuine in what you say. So many people have asked me, you know, but what do I say in conversations? Like, I think I'm a weird person. Like, people aren't going to be interested in what I talk about. And my answer to that is say anything. Don't come off scripted. Don't try and work it out. It's not an equation. And as long as you are genuine, you can say the kookiest, weirdest, strangest stuff, but it will come off fine if it's just coming from a place of genuineness. You could say the most perfect comment that you've sat in your head all evening and sculpted and crafted, and oh, how about the score in that game in the World Cup last night? You know, like if it's not genuine, if you don't care about football or whatever it is that you're talking about, and it is stilted and fake and something that you've just been thinking up in your head, that will come across. People hear the emotion behind what you're saying. They don't focus so much on what you're saying. They focus on how you make them feel, not on the content so much of what you're saying. If you can find a way to be relaxed and just genuinely express something like, well, I'm actually a nerd and I just spent all last week just coding because I'm a total nerd and that's what I love doing. That might have been something that you didn't think you could share because you're embarrassed about being a coding nerd or whatever it is. If it's genuine, people will just appreciate the genuineness of what you're saying. Okay, and that brings us on to the fifth point, the final point, is to practice. As with all of this stuff with social anxiety, you're facing a fear, you're facing something that's difficult. And the best way to do that is to practice, and to preferably practice a lot. I did this myself by joining meetups, by joining small groups in local businesses, by joining Toastmasters, and all of that stuff was super scary to me. It really was. You can't imagine, nobody hated it as much as me, but this is a skill. What we're talking about, becoming more relaxed, being able to communicate better, being less anxious, this is a skill which you can learn and refine and perfect and get really good at, but you're gonna have to practice. You're gonna have to put in the work and the effort. So, it probably will be painful. There will be interactions. I'm sure your first experience of getting up at Toastmasters and speaking or whatever is going to be scary. But on the other side of any big challenge is that huge payoff where you're extremely relieved, extremely proud of yourself. And that is where growth comes. When you're in the gym and you rip that muscle and it hurts like hell, the muscle grows because it's been torn and then it rebuilds itself and you come back stronger. So that's how growth happens. You got to kind of hurt sometimes. I would really recommend you get out there, you practice in family groups. Maybe if you don't contribute at meal times with your family, start off small. As with all goal setting that we've talked about on this channel, start off really small, be very kind to yourself, make very gradual incremental progress. Just do this stuff a lot. If possible, you then start joining up these little meetup groups. I remember for me, there was a co-working space which had a meetup every Friday, and I would go along to that. And sure enough, we had a little group, and then the person holding the little workshop, they were like, okay, you, pointing at me, you please present the findings of your group. So I had to stand up, and I got up. I didn't feel I did it really well, but it was just another one. It was then a notch of experience that I could, rack up, and I started to build from there. Take these tips on board, get out there, and most importantly, practice, practice, practice. And as always, let me know how you get on. I'd be really interested to hear how this has worked for you, or share whatever else has worked for you. And as always, I'd be very grateful if you could please subscribe to the channel, because it helps us help more people